Disclaimer. I was originally going to release this around Thanksgiving as an inside joke, but responsibility came up and, well, it's coming out now, so enjoy! So recently I got a sudden urge to rewatch some movies I would watch a lot as a kid, and I thought, well, might as well make videos out of these. I mean, there's not really a specific reason for these, it's just, I want to talk about some of these movies. So, for the next couple of videos, I'll be reminiscing about them and why I love them. So, without further ado, let's get into the movie every 2000s kid remembers, SpiderMan. Now, to be real for a second, I didn't really get into superheroes until about age 10. Really, the only ones I liked before then were Spider-Man, Batman, and the Fantastic Four. Which is like 6 superheroes, so I don't know, I think I had a pretty good track record as a younger kid. I also didn't read a lot of comics. Again, that came much later, so just keep in mind that my preferences in terms of comic movies may be a little different than most. That means I'm not really a stickler for comic accuracy and all that. To me, as long as the movie is enjoyable, that's all that matters. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. Let's talk about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. This is, in my opinion, one of the most influential superhero movies. Not because it's amazing, see what I did there, but because it's pretty much set the stage for every other Marvel movie that came afterwards. Sure, Blade was well received, but no one at the time knew it was even a Marvel movie, unless, of course, you were like hardcore. X-Men was successful, but it lacked the flair of feeling like a Marvel comic. And as someone who loves the X-Men movies, yeah, that first movie, it was good for the time, but come on guys, a little more color wouldn't have been so bad. But 2002's Spider-Man perfectly balanced itself by being a decent movie and a great comic movie. If not for this movie's popularity, everyone wouldn't have stuff like the MCU. But everyone who's talked about this movie has mentioned this, so I might as well talk about my personal reasons for liking this movie. What I love about this movie is its timeless feel. And I'm not talking in its dialogue.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
What I'm referring to is its story. I like how simple and straightforward it is. You have Peter Parker, who is just this huge nerd that no one wants to hang with. He gets bitten by a spider, obtains superpowers. He abuses them, but learns he has to use them responsibly. With great power comes great responsibility. It's really simple, and it's not that complicated. This makes the movie very rewatchable in my opinion. It's on par with like the original Star Wars and the first Pirates of the Caribbean as just an easy to follow and easy to watch story. Another thing this movie does well for me is the tone. Some people complain that it's too cheesy or too goofy, but I don't know, it seems like that was kinda the intention. Watch some of Sam Raimi's other movies. They're very similar in tone. I think the best movie to compare this to is Darkman, which is made by Sam Raimi. It's a superhero movie he made in the 90s. That movie is serious yet goofy at the same time, and that's exactly how this movie is.
Back to formula.
So, to anyone who hasn't seen this movie, just know that the cheesiness is intentional. Also, this movie just feels like a Marvel comic in my opinion. Yeah, I know it really makes you feel like Spider-Man. No, that's not the case. The dialogue is hokey and weird, but honestly, it's kinda charming. Like, it feels like an old 60s comic book.
It's you who's out, Gobby. Out of your mind.
Wrong answer!
I mean, even the cartoons were the same.
Spider-Man! What did you expect, Peter Pan?
The tone of the movie is perfect. It's corny, but it knows when to get serious. And that's just perfect in my book. The action is also really good in this movie. It's not your usual Marvel explodey action that we have today. It's more of your practical sets and fight choreography type. And while there are some parts that look like a 90s computer test, I tend not to give it too much crap. But I digress. The effects in this movie that aren't CGI are really good, and the physical fight scenes have so much personality. Again, I know this looks like a Power Rangers episode to most, but I feel like it has that cheesy charm akin to that of 60s Batman or Richard Donner Superman. The best fight, hands down, has to be the final one between the Goblin and Spider-Man. mainly for how brutal it is. I mean, Spider-Man really gets the shit kicked out of him, and it's pretty hard to watch him get overpowered by the Goblin. But once he regains his strength and fights back, you're just like, yes, kick his ass. And it's just truly satisfying to watch. But aside from the mindless action, the characters are also entertaining to watch. Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker just really captures the nerdiness of the role. And while yeah, he still feels like Peter Parker in the suit, he's still pretty badass in my opinion. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was action movie Spider-Man to me. He was like on par with Rambo and John McClane. And while yes, Tom Holland perfectly captures the youth and quips Spider-Man is known for in the comics, I always felt that Sam Raimi's iteration of the character really put the man in his name. You know what I mean? Although Tom will get there. Aside from Spider-Man, everyone else gives a pretty decent performance. And yeah, MJ screams a lot, and Harry is kinda in this movie, but for the most part, everyone is alright. But what I give this movie major props for is the casting of Green Goblin and Uncle Ben. Now, of course, when I was a kid I didn't really care about this kind of stuff. I just wanted to see Spider-Man do Spider-Man stuff. But as I've gotten older, I really appreciate the casting of Willem Dafoe and Cliff Robertson in this movie. They are by far the best performances. Willem Dafoe perfectly captures the cold businessman feel of Norman Osborn, while also doing justice to the wacky and psychotic Green Goblin. He really makes you feel like the Goblin. Okay, I'll stop that joke. And the Power Ranger design aside, he's a pretty threatening villain. I mean, this man throws pumpkin bombs that make people skeletons. That's just terrifying. As for Cliff Robertson as Uncle Ben, he plays the wise mentor figure pretty well, and while he isn't in the movie for that long, his death definitely leaves an impact. It still gets me to this day, and meme all you want about Tobey's cry face, but it seems really genuine. When you've lost someone close to you, you do not look pretty, so stop acting like this is a bad cry face. Real cry faces are actually really ugly. Now, if you have thrown some snot on there, I would have believed it more. Okay, just kidding. Oh, I also forgot one more person who is cast perfectly in this movie. To the Spider-Man community, he needs no introduction. J. Jonah Jameson. What else is there to say? He's funny, loud, and all around just enjoyable to watch. When I was a kid, I really liked him. And that's that when you're a kid, you don't want to spend time with a boring human, but JJ is the exception. J.K. Simmons plays the role perfectly, and he's essentially the comic book character come to life. He was so good that they reused him in the MCU, which is just amazing. See, there's that word again. Anyway, with all that said, I would give this movie 4 out of 5 stars. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a fun movie. Personally, I don't consider it a masterpiece in terms of superhero movies. That's more reserved for other movies. But for what this was worth, and what it influences, I'm glad this movie exists. And I am certainly glad I grew up with this movie. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video. But real quick, before the video ends, let me know in the comments if you want to see me talk about 2 and 3, because I did grow up with all 3 of them. I just talked about 1 today because that's the one I watched the most. But yeah, let me know if you want me to talk about 2 and 3, and again, I'll see you in the next video.